Welcome to this video interview of the Graziadio Business Review. I am Charla Griffy-Brown, Professor of Information Systems and Technology Management, and I am also Director of the Center for Teaching and Learning Excellence here at the Graziadio School of Business and Management. I am very excited to introduce Associate Professor Karl Knapp, who joins us from the School of Business and Management at the Institute of Technology in Bandung, which is recognized as Indonesia's best business school. Professor Knapp comes to us with a wealth of experience as an aerospace executive, as an entrepreneur, as a professor who's taught literally all over the world, in Indonesia, in Australia, here in the U.S., and he hails from California Institute of Technology with a PhD, a Master's of Science, and a Bachelor's of Science from Caltech. And he is going to explain to us today a little more about his insight and experience in Southeast Asia as a business school professor, integrating curriculum which involves business ethics and technology and society. Welcome, Associate Professor Knapp.
Thank you.
Starting with Technology and Society. Technology and Society is a journal that has been around for 33 years, since 1979. And since that time, there have been unprecedented changes technologically, economically, and politically. And certainly today's society must deal with the consequences of an even wider range of developments and address difficult issues, ranging from how a free society can respond to terrorism to the evolving role of the military and techno-economic growth. My question to you is, as part of this global scholarly dialogue, what role do you see technology playing in these issues throughout Indonesia and Southeast Asia?
Well, I believe that technology can play a very important role in dealing with these issues. However, I'm concerned about the appropriateness of some of the technology that's being introduced. For example, in the area of foreign aid, on occasion, Western agricultural practices have been introduced in Indonesia, which, when the funding was depleted, were no longer sustainable because they simply couldn't afford the chemicals involved or the genetically modified seeds or whatever. Yeah.
So, in that regard, as a professor who teaches in Southeast Asia, what role do you see scholarly research playing in this dynamic?
Well, if the scholarly research is honestly based on looking at problems that exist within the communities there, then I think it can be very, very useful. If, on the other hand, the scholarly research is just focused on adding some letters after somebody's name, it may not add much value at all.
So from your perspective, what questions would you like to see scholars asking relative to these issues and the role technology plays?
Well, I'd like to see the scholars involved more with the community, perhaps even immersed in the community, and be asking the question of the people that have problems in areas that need development, what they perceive the problems to be. Now, scholars can conduct research, and it may turn out that what people believe the problems to be are quite different than the real causes of the difficulties that they're having. And researchers can play a part then in identifying what the real problems are and potentially even identifying potential solutions to those problems.
So, Associate Professor Knapp, you have told us a little bit about what you think is important in terms of the appropriateness of technology. What concerns you most in this area? And what do you think would be the most meaningful and relevant to decision makers wrestling with these concerns?
Well, what concerns me most in Southeast Asia, where I live and work, is the situation faced by impoverished women and children. Okay, they have a lot of difficulties and are very often victims of abuse and trafficking and child labor situations. You know, I would like to see a focus on trying to solve some of those problems, finding ways to deal with those problems. And in particular, in education in remote villages, perhaps there are things we can do with existing technology or newer technology to make delivery more effective there under very constrained budgets. And of course, there's similar problems in delivering health care and making sure that people are nourished properly, etc. And we need to find sustainable solutions to those problems.
I know that there are some specific problems that certainly exist here, but probably manifest themselves in terms of scale and scope in a larger way. You also had mentioned some of these in the past, and they include human trafficking and the problem of human trafficking in Indonesia. Could you tell us a little bit about this and your model of causality? What do you think are the roots of these problems, and how do you address them as an educator? As a business
Okay, well, I see child labor, human trafficking, and related problems as primarily being due to poverty. Okay, and the poverty in turn is primarily due to poor education. Mm-hmm. Now, it may not be the only cause of the problem, but certainly a very important one. So I try to bring that out. I don't do too much of this in the classroom, okay? Mm-hmm. It's more a personal passion on my part.
But I do think that it's interesting as an educator, you're interested in how business impacts community and working with community to solve very specific problems.
Oh yes, and of course corporate social responsibility is actually mandated by the Indonesian government for corporations, okay? But we have the typical problem that very often people designing programs with very good intentions don't bother to talk to the stakeholders. And they design something which seems to be very good, you know, but since they didn't involve the stakeholders in the first place, very often is not well accepted by the very people they're trying to help. So it's very important to get involved, you know, whether you're students trying to learn about business or either business trying to help the community, you need to involve the major stakeholders.
And it sounds like the local perspective is extremely important.
Oh yes.
It sounds like you have a very positive view of technology. Do you think there are some things we should look out for? Do you think there are some negatives that we should consider?
Well, I'm not a fan of technology for technology's sake. Okay, I think technology development should be focused on problems, okay, and not academic, as it were.
So you're very much, as a scholar, focused on practice.
Yes.
You have been involved in business, both as an aerospace executive and an entrepreneur, and also a business professor at universities really all over the world, in the U.S. and Indonesia and Australia. What do you think are the key issues in technology and business practice in Indonesia and Southeast Asia?
How many days do we have?
Give us just a few.
There are really too many to list. But for example, in Indonesia, the standards of human resource management are not very good.
Okay.
You know, here's an area that was focused on using information system-based technology. I think that we could make human resource practices more uniform, more transparent, and accessible to all employees. Okay, just a small example.
And so that would assist in elevating workplace practices?
Yes, because it would essentially force the managers to follow uniform standards as specified by transparently available regulations or rules or practice, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it could have a very positive effect.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing with us, sharing your views, your experience, and your expertise.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for this video interview for the Graziadio Business Review. For more information, please join us online at gbr.pepperdine.edu.